Hey everybody, I'm glad you came back to Kick It Into Sticks. Today we are at a different location. I'm actually at my parents' house and we are going to pick ripe tomatoes for canning. And we're going to show you how that process works today. So we're going to pick only the red tomatoes for this process. Those are the ripe ones and that's what we want to use for canning our juice. That's a nice, perfect one. No splits. Look at that. I got pretty big hands. That thing completely fills it. So as you can see, we've made quite the first haul for tomatoes. Now these are super steak hybrids. And as you can see, I'm not exactly sure which variety this is. We got these from some friends, but I'm going to assume maybe like a Better Boy. These super steaks grow to be 1 to 2 pounds in size. And we like these because it doesn't take a lot. You get a lot of juice. And that's what we grow these for. So when you're picking these tomatoes and you're doing this for the juicing process, you want nice red ripe tomatoes. Don't pick them when they're green. Don't pick them when they're orange yellow. Let them ripen into a nice fully matured red tomato. That's going to be your best tomato for canning juice. So as you can see here, we got some splits in some of our tomatoes, and that's okay. That just happened because we had some really dry days this summer, and even when you water plants with well water, it just doesn't do it like rainwater does. When these plants get a nice shot of rainwater, they grow and they burst and they swell up very quickly. They absorb that water, they pull it into the plant, and it pulls it into the fruit, and then the fruit skin ends up splitting because it grows so quickly. This always works nicer when you got a couple people doing it, but right now my mom is going to just wash all of the tomatoes that we pulled out of the garden. And I'm going to go through and cut out all of the cores out of here, and we're going to quarter them up, and we're going to stick them in our stock pot here, and we're going to start cooking them down. So I'm just going to take the tomato with a little paring knife, and we're just going to cut at an angle all around the area where the stem is. And we're just going to lift out, pull. Alright, so there we go. We've got our cored tomato. And then we're just going to go ahead and into our pot, we're just going to halve it. And just kind of quarter it too. This just will help cook up a little bit faster. Bigger ones, you might have to do a little bit more than quarters. Just cut them up into small, fairly uniform sized pieces so they cook up. And if you have any little bad spots like this on the bottom, just go ahead and do the same thing you did at the top, just cut it off. And as you can hear already, these are starting to sizzle. That's because we were putting them into a pan that we already had on the stove heating up before we started to slice and clean. Doesn't have to be on for long. You can actually start the pan at the same time you start to wash and clean your tomatoes. By the time you start putting pieces in, it'll be warm already. Don't wear white when you're doing this. You're probably going to get splashed with tomato juice. So as we can see right here, this is what our pot of tomatoes looked like before we start cooking them down. This is what it's going to start to look like once they've been cooking. And you're going to want to keep stirring this occasionally, and don't worry if you mash the tomatoes up because they go through an even more aggressive process after this. So go ahead, stir, get it all tender, mash them up in there. But you can see how much juice has already come out now from the cooking process. So we're going to call that good. This was coming to a little bit of a rolling boil before, and everything inside is very tender, and we've got it all pretty well juiced up. So we're going to take this pot off, and we're going to put our last one on. And by bringing your juice to a boil like this too, it also sterilizes anything that may have gotten into the tomato, any little bug, or most of these were pretty bug free though. I wouldn't be too worried about that, but we don't spray our plants with pesticides, and we don't spray any herbicides in our gardens either to keep the weeds down. We just go out there and pick weeds when we need to pick them. We try to keep our product as natural as possible because we consume enough garbage on a daily basis, the way our store-bought processed foods are growing, that we like to try to keep this as healthy as we can because we can control that aspect because we grew it ourselves. Now this is actually a stove base for a turkey deep fryer, but this is what we're going to use to heat up our canning jars. We're going to put our canning jars in a hot water bath for about 10 minutes. That will also sterilize and kill any bacteria, so that'll keep our juice nice and fresh on the inside. It'll also create a steam vapor or a boiling process inside the jars, which once that steam condenses and cools, will also create a vacuum and seal the lids down tight to the jars. So this right here is our secret weapon to making thick tomato juice. This will prevent your tomato juice from separating as it sits in the jars over the course of several months, and you won't have that pulpy mixture float up and have water either at the top or bottom of your jar. By blending all of your tomatoes, you get more of that pulp pulverized, so that way when you sieve it, you have very little waste and most of your product is going into your mason jars. That also helps keep everything thicker. When you're filling your blender, it's just very important to make sure you do not go more than half full, just to prevent any splashing when you turn the blender on. And start out at a slow speed with your hand on the cover. You don't have to blend it for long once it's on high. Now that we've got our tomatoes all sieved and we have our juice here, we're going to run this on the burner one more time and we're going to bring it back to a boil. And we're also going to add in a little bit of salt on. You're just going to sprinkle lightly across the top. And if you choose not to salt this before you can it, that's fine too. You can can this as raw tomato juice and you can season it at the time of cooking. You can salt it now here, just a generous sprinkle like I did here, or you can season it to taste before you jar it. It's completely up to you how you want to do it. We're emptying the water out of our jars, and it helps if you use a wide mouth funnel that fits 1 quart jars. Much nicer. And we're simply just going to start ladling our juice into our jars. And you're going to want to leave about a ½ inch of head space. You don't want to fill them plumb full to the top. The foam was deceiving on that one. Now it's full. We're just going to give our rims a wipe down just to make sure there's no residue. All right, we're just going to drop our mason jars into this water bath for, well, it's still staying boiling, but we're going to boil it for at least 10 minutes. We might just give it 12 just to make sure that that water comes back up to a boil again, and we'll come back out here and pull them and let them cool so they can seal. All right, our 10 minutes is up. Now, one other important thing that I forgot to mention is you want to make sure your jars are completely submerged in water when you do this canning process. If they're not submerged, add more water and make sure they are. So once you bring your jars into rest, just put them on a cutting board or some sort of a pot holder or placemat of some sort, just so you don't get whatever surface they're resting on warm. And make sure that you don't have any windows open or breezes. My grandpa at one time, he had claimed that he left some windows open and a cool breeze blowing against some jars that he was canning, and he had about half of his jars that did not seal up. So just for safety's sake, we don't like to have any windows open while these are resting. And you're going to want to let these sit for a good 24 hours. Don't play with the lids. Don't push down on them. Let them seal naturally. Let them purge the air out. You'll hear the pop. So when these seal, you'll kind of hear a sound. Oh, there went one. So you'll be hearing that. So that lets you know that they're sealing down and the lids are sucking down tight. Oh, there went another one. So that's what it'll sound like once the jars start to seal. As I already said, you're going to want to let these sit for at least 24 hours. That includes do not remove the ring. Let them sit and rest so that way they fully seal. The next day when you get ready to remove the ring should be fairly loose because the lids are going to be drawn down really tight and the ring won't be quite as tight as what you tightened it the first time. And make sure when you do tighten them up as tight as you can get them before you put them in the water bath. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button down below. And I strongly encourage you to start growing for sustainability. It's one of the easiest and simplest first steps that you can take. Even if you've never grown your own garden before, and even if you've never tried canning, it's okay. Because we're here for you and we want to see you succeed. And we're here to cheer you on. The only thing you need to do is hit that subscribe button below. We'll continue to show you how to grow your own produce and different kinds of produce. We'll also continue to show you how to store that produce for long-term storage. Or maybe you just want it for something fresh. Maybe just fresh diced tomatoes on a salad or a fresh slice of tomato on a sandwich. Regardless of what you want to do with it, we're here to help you out. So we hope you all come back to kick it into sticks next time with us. We'll see you in the next one.